I got bad news for you, Chamath. An open source ban is coming. They're not going to call it that. You know what they're going to say? They're going to say that we simply have to apply the same standards to open models that we apply to closed.
On August 21st, 4 venture capitalists sat down to talk about a blog post. By the end of the hour, one of them had described, step by step, out loud, on the record, how open source artificial intelligence gets outlawed in the United States without a single legislator ever voting to ban it. He wasn't speculating. He was reading the playbook. And the reason the playbook works is that at no point does anyone have to say the word ban. They only have to say the word fair. Now, you should know going in that the man saying this is not a neutral party. He has spent 18 months publicly accusing this specific company of exactly this specific thing. But an argument does not become wrong because the person making it has a grudge. It becomes checkable. So let's check it. This is the anatomy of that machine. Who built it? What set it in motion? The one line of Senate testimony from 2023 that makes the whole thing run. And the reason it may not matter at all.
Look, there's no question that Anthropic has been extremely aggressive about seeking to implement its preferred regulatory frameworks at both the state and federal level. That is regulatory capture. Now, look, I think that Dario may be sincere in his beliefs. I'm not saying he's doing this for pecuniary reasons. Nonetheless, he is seeking to capture the machinery of the state on behalf of his political agenda.
Start with what actually happened. Dario Amodei, the chief executive of Anthropic, published a 2-part essay defending himself. And the specific charge he chose to answer was regulatory capture. He wrote, quote, "I know the Silicon Valley shorthand where regulation equals regulatory capture equals concentration of power, but I've always found this to be an overly simplified picture." Notice the move. Capture is being treated as an accusation about motive, about whether he is greedy. But that is not what the phrase means. A company captures a regulator when the rules that govern an industry end up written by the people the rules are supposed to govern. Sincerity is not a defense against it. In fact, sincerity makes it more likely, not less, because a true believer lobbies harder than a cynic ever will. You can mean every word you are saying and still end up as the author of your competitor's rule book.
You expect us to have amnesia about the fact that just about 1.5 years ago, you said very specifically that within 1 to 5 years, 50% of entry-level knowledge workers would lose their jobs. And this was not just some sort of idle speculation on a podcast. This was something that they engineered and amplified into a full-fledged media campaign. You may recall that President Obama even retweeted this. So these guys have created campaigns to make people fear AI. Why is the public so afraid of AI? They think it's going to take their jobs. They think it's become the Terminator. It's exactly the fears that Anthropic has put in the media bloodstream. And
hold that against a calendar, because the calendar is most of the argument. The 50% number was not a stray remark on a podcast. It came with a window attached, 1 to 5 years, and the bottom of that window is now closed. We are past it. Unemployment among entry-level knowledge workers did not halve. And the correction never came. Sam Altman went on the record saying he had been too negative. Amodei did not. Then there is the second artifact, Anthropic's own alignment research, showing a model resorting to blackmail. A result the United Kingdom's AI Safety Institute later described as produced under highly pressurized, contrived conditions. Both of these traveled the same route. Study, press push, 60-minute segment, headline. And here's the part that matters for everything that follows. Whatever you believe about the underlying risk, and the underlying risk may well be real, the distribution strategy is not in dispute. Somebody chose to make the public afraid.
I was really shocked when I saw Governor Abbott of Texas put down this executive order around Texas data centers and limiting its growth. Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania just did the same thing. Axios reported that the GOP party sent out a memo to the executives at the various AI companies essentially saying, hey, stop rage baiting people because we're about to lose this critical GOP Senate race in Ohio. That causes people to be less likely to invest in all the data centers. Data centers themselves are being shut down. Where does that leave frontier model companies? They're the most at risk. Why? Because they're not investment grade. They're in the worst position in terms.
And this is the part that should frighten the laboratories more than any regulator does. Follow the loop. Fear gets manufactured in order to justify oversight. The fear becomes politically load-bearing. And once fear is load-bearing, it stops obeying the people who built it. Greg Abbott, Republican, halts up to 1,800 data center projects in Texas. Josh Shapiro, Democrat, moves the same week in Pennsylvania. 18 months ago, both of those states were competing to host this industry. Now watch the money. Treasury yields rise. The risk-free rate rises with them. And capital stops chasing speculative infrastructure because it no longer has to. Now look at who is standing at the bottom of that drain. The frontier labs are not investment grade. They hold the weakest balance sheets and the largest capital requirements in the entire industry simultaneously. Every unit of growth increases the compute they have to finance in a market that is quietly closing to them. The fear campaign worked. It simply did not stop where it was aimed.
If we put ourselves in the shoes of a frontier lab leader, and the leader is seeing capabilities of models that perhaps we don't see because we're working day to day in enterprise settings, making stuff, doing things in a benign, non-nefarious way. And they're sitting there and they're pressure testing models, and they figure out, hey, there's ways you can jailbreak models to get them to do things that they're not supposed to do. And then you can use them to do things like design bioweapons, make viruses, make infectious diseases that don't exist today. You believe fully in its capabilities and its benefits to society, its benefits to the economy, but you can't get a grip on how to keep it under control and how to stop social engineering, bioweapons, and cyber weapons. What do you do differently?
Okay.
That question deserves a real answer, not a dunk. So assume the private capability evaluations are genuinely alarming. Assume they can see something the rest of us cannot. If that is your honest position, it implies a very specific obligation, and it is not the obligation you would expect. It is not, give me authority. It is, let somebody else look. Because a danger that only you can see, assessed by a process that only you can run, verified by nobody, is indistinguishable from a danger that you are asserting. That is not a claim about anyone's character. It is a problem in epistemics, and it applies equally to people who are telling the truth. There is exactly one way out of it, and everyone in this conversation already knows what it is.
If I was really afraid, the first thing I would do is try to find a way to unobfuscate these thinking tokens so that you could have a third party actually legitimize what you're saying. Because what's interesting to me is I haven't seen the same doomerism from any open source model company. And the thing with the open source models is you can actually see it thinking. So you can see its misalignment in real time. And so instead, we have to basically agree to their interpretation of tokens that we can't see, that only they can see, that they can interpret how they want.
There it is. If the reasoning traces were visible, an outside party could check the alarm instead of taking it on faith. And now notice the pattern that falls out of that, because it may be the most underrated fact in this entire debate. The laboratories whose models you can actually inspect, whose weights you can download, whose reasoning you can read, whose misalignment you could in principle catch happening in real time, are not the ones telling you this technology might kill everyone. The doom is arriving almost exclusively from the labs whose models you cannot see inside. Now, that correlation does not prove bad faith. There's an innocent reading, which is that the closed labs are simply further ahead and therefore see more. But if that is the explanation, it is an explanation you are being asked to accept without evidence, from the only people holding the evidence.
If all of a sudden competitor A, B, and C could see every single trace and span that your model generated as an artifact of going from input tokens to output tokens, you're essentially giving away a lot of your recipe.
And here's why that door stays shut. The reasoning trace is not only evidence, it is also the recipe. Publishing it to satisfy a safety auditor publishes it to every competitor on Earth at the same moment. So the transparency that would make the warning verifiable is the same transparency that would dissolve the moat, which leaves precisely one arrangement that satisfies both conditions at once. A closed room, A small number of participants, credentialed access, nothing on the public record. Hold that shape in your head, because everything that follows in this story is an attempt to build that exact room, and then give it the force of law.
I think designing a new regulatory agency for AI that's designed after FINRA, which is a pretty sleepy regulatory agency that writes rules for stockbrokers in a fairly mature industry that's not dynamic at all, is a horrible idea. And by the way, FINRA is widely perceived as just protecting incumbents.
SRO,
It's not an SRO because it's not self-regulating. It's a regulatory organization, and the S part is a total fig leaf designed to hide the fact that this is a new regulatory agency that reports to the government that does pre-release testing and approval of models. I call it a DMV for AI because I think what's going to happen is all these models are going to get lined up in a queue, waiting to get their tests done, and then
Two proposals are on the table, and they get discussed as though they were the same thing. They are not. The first is the film industry model. In the 1930s, facing real censorship legislation, the studios built their own ratings board. No government reporting line, no legal force, no permission required to release a film. It existed for one purpose: to make the statute unnecessary. The second is the broker model. Rules with the force of law, a reporting line into a federal agency, and mandatory review before a product is allowed to reach the public. Both of these get called self-regulatory organizations. Only one of them actually self-regulates. And notice which way the substitution runs. The film model constrains the industry to keep the government out. The broker model invites the government in and hands the industry the pen. The distance between them is the distance between a standard you may ignore at your own risk and a queue you are not legally permitted to skip.
let me explain how regulatory capture actually works. So first of all, you got to get this regulatory apparatus, okay? Dario wants an FDA for AI, but he doesn't have enough political support for that. So instead, they do this Trojan horse of a FINRA for AI. They call it self-regulating. It's not really. But anyway, that gets them off the ground. Now they've created the standard-setting organization. Now they've got pre-release model testing. Then the pressure grows to codify that in law so that...
This is the center of the whole thing. So let's slow all the way down and build it one piece at a time. Step 1. Ask for a regulator with real statutory teeth, an FDA for AI. This fails, and it fails immediately because there is no political appetite anywhere for a federal agency that approves software before release. Step 2. Reframe the identical body as self-regulatory, industry-run, voluntary, collaborative. That single word does enormous work because it converts a fight about government power into a fight about industry responsibility. And almost nobody is willing to campaign against responsibility. Step 3. The body's actual function is pre-release model testing. That is the payload. Everything before it was packaging. Step 4. Once the testing exists and is already running, writing it into law stops being a proposal and becomes a formality. You are no longer asking for a new regime. You are merely giving legal backing to a process that already exists, that the whole industry already participates in, and that nobody can now remember agreeing to. And step 5, only step 5, is where the ban lives. Step 5 is a sentence about fairness.
Look, all these standards need to apply equally to all models, but here's the problem with that. Open models and closed models, as you know, are technologically different. Go back to Dario's Senate testimony in, I think it was 2023, where he said that open models, if sufficiently advanced, are dangerous. And why are they dangerous? Because they cannot be centrally monitored and controlled and rolled back and withdrawn. Hold on. And those characteristics are immutable. They're technologically, they can't be changed. Once you release an open model into the world, you can't roll it back and you can't monitor exactly how people are using it because they run it on their own hardware.
Now the trap closes and you can watch it close in slow motion. Take Amadei's own 2023 testimony at face value. Open models are dangerous, he argued, for 3 specific reasons. They cannot be centrally monitored, they cannot be rolled back, they cannot be withdrawn. Those are not policy failures that somebody could fix with more funding or better engineering. They are definitional properties. An open model is a file on somebody else's hard drive. There is no server to switch off because there is no server. So now write the safety standard directly from the testimony. Require continuous monitoring of deployed use. Require the ability to withdraw a model on an adverse finding. Require rollback. And then apply it identically to everyone. Genuinely identically. No carve-outs, no exceptions. Perfectly neutral on its face and defensible in front of any committee you like. A closed model passes all three requirements by construction. An open model fails all three by definition. Nobody banned anything. The rules were the same for everybody. That is the trick, and it is the entire trick.
A very simple matter of fairness to say that the standards need to apply to open as well as closed models. The open models cannot comply in the same way, and gradually they will be shut out.
When you take a closed source model, it does really well on a benchmark. When you wrap it in its own harness, it decays in capability. When you take an open source model and you use any other open source model, it improves in capability. What is that trying to tell you? Now, what is Coca-Cola to do? Run the slower, more costly, less effective, less valuable model in the United States? Sure, they'll do that. And their US business will cripple. They will have a better flourishing business abroad. They will invest abroad. And what you will see is FDI, foreign direct investment in the United States, go off of a cliff.
And so what exactly would be lost? 3 years ago, the only thing that existed was the model, and the only question anyone asked was its benchmark score. Then came the harness, the scaffolding the model runs inside, Claude Code, Codex, the open agent frameworks. And a strange result started showing up. Take a closed model out of its own harness and its capability degrades. Take an open model and run it inside somebody else's harness, and it frequently improves. Now, that is one investor's read of early data, not a published result. But if it holds, it means the interesting performance is increasingly a property of the combination rather than of the weights. And combinations are precisely what you cannot build when half the components are legally unavailable. Then there is the money, which is simpler. Tell every multinational operating in America that it must run the slower, costlier permission model here, while a faster one remains perfectly legal everywhere else. You have not protected anybody. You have written a very persuasive argument for building somewhere else.
Theoretically, an individual that's smart enough, or a group of individuals that's smart enough, can go spin up an RSI factory anywhere in the world or anywhere in space. And your attempts to ban the data centers, or the attempts to ban or to create a regulatory body, that's why I call it a fool's errand. Because the thing with the open internet and the thing with compute is all that it needs is the chips and the power and a connection. Wouldn't we be better off having systems where we actually have those labs based, where we have those data centers based in the US, where we have jurisdiction over them, where we have capacity to monitor and control and police them, rather than just have them sprung up in some random country or some random territory? So I guess my point is we should be attracting and retaining the frontier labs, not...
I think choice has to be our hallmark. Competition has to be our hallmark. We want multiple winners here. We don't want a small number of elites guardrailing this thing. And that is what you will get if you head in this FAA FINRA.
And here's the twist that makes the entire apparatus faintly absurd. The thing being regulated is not a factory. It is chips, power, and a connection. Every lever in that 5-step machine, the standards body, the testing queue, the fairness clause, operates on entities that hold still inside a jurisdiction. Which means the machine ends up with perfect authority over exactly the actors who are never the problem, and no authority whatsoever over the ones who are. It cannot reach a data center in Kazakhstan. It cannot reach one in Iceland. It cannot reach a capability whose weights are already sitting on tens of thousands of hard drives in 90 countries. So it does the only thing left available to it. It binds the compliant and it consolidates them. Now, none of this means the answer is no rules. The correct question was never whether artificial intelligence should be regulated. Of course it should. The question is whether a given proposal survives 3 tests. 1. Is the process open? Can an outsider read the standard and the reasoning behind the standard, or does it happen in a room? 2. Is it contestable? Can you lose an argument inside it, or is participation the only available position? And 3. Can everybody technically comply? Or does it contain a requirement that one entire class of participant is structurally incapable of meeting? A proposal that fails the 3rd test is not a safety standard. It is a ban wearing the word fair as a costume. So watch for that sentence when it arrives. It will not sound sinister. It will be the single most reasonable sounding line in the entire bill. If this was useful, subscribe. We read the primary sources so that you don't have to.